Hi, fifth graders. Welcome to Unit 8, Lesson 18. Today we're going to work on finding the area of triangles. Okay, and I've got a piece of triangular paper. You know the area of a rectangle is length times width, or if it was a parallelogram, that it's base times height. Here's what we're going to do today. We're going to use this piece of paper and we're going to figure out how to figure out the area of a piece of paper like this. Now, I want you to watch what happens. So I have drawn, you probably can't see it very well, but I have drawn a diagonal line from corner all the way down to corner. And I'm going to cut along that diagonal line. Okay, so look what we have here. This was my original. Cut it in half. I've got two halves. So if you knew the whole area of this, I'm just going to make up some numbers. So let's say you knew the whole area of this whole thing was 20 square inches. If I cut it in half, each one's going to be half of that. So this would be 10 square inches. This one would be 10 square inches. So our magic for today of finding the area of a rectangle of a triangle is going to be to find the area of the rectangle and cut it in half. Okay. Same thing works if you have a square. Okay. Now the area of a square is length times width, but a lot of times people think, well, a square really doesn't have a length and it really doesn't have a width because there isn't one side that's longer than the other side. So instead of saying length times width, they say side times side, or side square is the area of a square, okay, rather than length times width. Same thing, not sure if you can see it very well or not, but I have the square and I'm going to cut it in half. And let's imagine that each side of my square was 8 inches. It is pretty close. It's actually 8.5 inches, but we're going to, just for simplicity's sake, we're going to say 8 inches. So 8 times 8, 64, right? Well, I cut it in half. Each of these is going to be half of 64. Half of 64 would be, if you said 32, you're right. All right, now I'm looking at a page right out of your textbook. It's page 397. If you have your textbook home, you can follow along. If not, a piece of scratch paper and a calculator and a pencil would be handy. So pause the video and go get those things if you don't have them. I think a lot of this is going to be pretty easy. So let's take a look at number 3. If we try to figure out the area of the whole rectangle, it would be 5 times 2. If we draw the diagonal and cut it in half, it would be half of 5 times 2. Well, you know 5 times 2 is 10, so the area of that would be 5. So 5 centimeters squared. Now, you might see the formula written a couple different ways. You might see it written base times height divided by 2. Because really we're taking that area of that rectangle and cutting it in half. You also might see it like this, 1/2 times base times height, because you're taking half of the base times height. Whichever way you want to look at it, the answer is going to be the same. Base times height would be 5 times 2 would be 10, divided by 2 is 5. Over here, if you do the base times height, you get 10, half of 10 is 5. So in either case, the answer is 5 centimeters squared. All right, I don't know if you can see this next one without my writing in the way, but you've got 8 times 8 divided by 2. This is just like the rectangle I did in the video earlier, isn't it? It's going to be 32 meters squared, because meters times meters is meters squared. Okay. All right, grab your calculator. And I would like for you to try number 5. All right, so with your calculator, 16 times 14, again, you could do 14 times 16 or 16 times 14, and you should get 224. Divide that by 2, or take half of it, and you get 112 inches squared. Okay. Over here, now, they didn't draw the whole rectangle out for you, did they? So you got to remember, it's not 12 times 12. It's going to be 12 times 12 divided by 2. And that is the most common mistake people make when they're finding the area of a triangle, is they forget to divide it by 2. Okay, 12 times 12 is 144, and 144 divided by 2 is 72 inches squared. Okay, for number 7, 7 times 14 divided by 2. So again, with your calculator, 7 times 14 should get 98. Divide it by 2, and you get 49. My unit, feet. Okay, so look down here at number 9. I know we're skipping number 8, but look at number 9. They're saying the B is the base and the height is the H. The formula for finding the triangle is going to be base times height divided by 2. And I would suggest, before you do any work today, that you would try to write that formula down and then look at that formula when you're figuring it out. Especially don't forget to divide by 2. All right, you might be wondering, when am I going to use this in my life? Well, there are some times where you might need to find the area of a triangle as opposed to the area of a rectangle. Here's an example right here. Number 13. Lottie divided her rectangular flower garden into 2 sections for pink and yellow roses. What's the area of each section? Excuse me. Well, basically it's a rectangle, right? And they divide it in half. So you're going to do 40 times 25. That would be the area of the whole thing, and divide it by 2. Remember, this little bar means divide. So on your calculator, multiply that out. And you should get 500 feet squared, or square feet. All right, down here we've got another problem that's real life. It's a banner, like a flag or a banner. And this is a banner for the Mountaineers Club. And I don't know, maybe they're going to make it out of fabric. I don't know, maybe they're going to make it out of paper, I'm not sure, or cardboard or something. But they need to figure out how much fabric they need of blue, how much pink, and how much green. Okay, well, what area would be green? Wow, this is going to be hard to figure out because they didn't tell us the dimensions of that green. Okay, well, you know that this dimension right here, it's kind of like they have a rectangle or a square. This side here is going to be the same as that side. So the one side is 15. I'm going to draw it over here. So that side is 15. But what about this bottom? Well, I kind of look at it, it looks like half is green and half is pink. So if you think about half of this, it would be 15. Okay, now, if this were a rectangle, you would do 15 times 15. But because it's a triangle, you've got to remember to divide it by 2. So the area of the green is going to be 15 times 15 divided by 2. And you should get 112.5. Hope you got that. Inches squared. Okay. What part is blue? Now, you could do that a couple different ways. Since you know this is going to be 112.5 and this is 112.5, you could add those two up, 225, figure out what the area of the whole thing is, and subtract that 225. Or you could kind of see that this is really, they're each the same. Okay, so the blue would really be double that because we cut each of those in half, right? So if you doubled that 112.5, it's the same thing that you get when you did the 15 times 15, and that would be 225 inches squared, or 2 times this. Again, if you wanted to go a long way, these two would add up to 225. You could figure out what that 30 times 15 is. I'll just tell you it's 450. And then you could subtract that 225. And you get 225. So whichever way you do it, you get the same answer as long as you're computing correctly. So depending on how you think about it. All right, so we're going to write an area for this right triangle with the sides S, and it's very rare, but you can have a right triangle that has these two sides the same. So you would do side times side divided by 2. Okay. You also could write that 1/2 times side times side. All right, you've got some questions for today. Good luck. If you're confused, message me, email me. I can Zoom with you. Good luck.